A good friend said to me last night, "You have 10 minutes? You could change the world." And I was like, okay, I kind of already have planned what I'm gonna say, so we'll see how that goes. My talk is titled An Informal Education because my education was so informal that I didn't go to very much school at all until I did go to college at the age of 16. And I hesitate to say that, I was a homeschooler, because not only can you feel the awkwardness arise in a situation when you tell someone you were a homeschooler, but because my education wasn't so much homeschooling as it was kind of a non-schooling. So for the first part of my childhood, I spent most of my time outside with my cousins and my siblings, just playing in the woods all day, every day. And we slept outside, and we cooked over fires, and we made forts and played orphans and did all sorts of amazing, wonderful things that I loved and had a great time. And we put on elaborate plays and circuses and invited the neighborhood. And I just remember that as an incredibly fun, vibrant time, like some of the best memories of my life. But as the years went on, we lived a little farther away from my cousins, and my parents started going to work a little bit more as we started getting older and our needs of our family changed. So essentially what happened is I started spending more and more time kind of on my own throughout the day. And people, when they hear that, always ask, like, well, what did you do all day? Like, if you weren't in school and you spent time home alone, like, what were you doing? And the first thing that comes to mind is reading. I read a lot for hours every day, and that has really continued into a lifelong love of reading and always having a book with me. But something else that I loved to do and spent a lot of time doing is I would go into my parents' bedroom where they had a big rowing machine. And this wasn't one of the little ergs that they have in gyms now, you know, with the little wheel on the end, and you go. This was like a full-blown rowing machine with the full arms that go out to the sides, like it was the size of a real boat. And so here I am, this like 11-year-old girl, and I would get on that rowing machine, and I would just row. And you have to get the oars in sync and everything and make it work, and I loved it. And at first, I got on there, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I could row like 15 minutes, you know. And then I got to 15 minutes, and I'm staring at my parents' clock radio, you know, by their bed. And I was like, I wonder if I could row like 20 minutes. And then I was like, I wonder if I could row for an hour. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. So I started rowing my heart out, and I rowed for a solid hour without stopping. And I was so proud of myself. I remember going into the kitchen and getting a glass of water and being so pumped. And then I saw the clock, and I was like, it is like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, what am I gonna do with the rest of my day now? You know? And so I went right back into my parents' bedroom, and I rowed for a whole nother hour. And then I felt like I really accomplished something, right? You know, I was like, now I'm really somebody, you know? I did something with my day. So later on, we got a treadmill and got rid of the rowing machine. It was too big, and I would run every day, and I would just listen to Billy Joel and Huey Lewis in the news, just like blasting, you know? And I would just run my heart out, and I was by a big open window. I was so happy, and still too young to kind of run in our neighborhood by myself, but I would run on the treadmill every day, and I loved it. I also baked a lot, and with my siblings, one time we made something like 6 dozen fully decorated Christmas cookies in one day, and we had it all cleaned up and them hidden in the freezer in our garage in tinfoil, like labeled ground beef or something, and hid them in the garage from my parents for like, this was like the middle of May, right? And we hid them in there until the following Christmas, and we pulled them out Christmas week, you know, big surprise, and my parents were thrilled. I thought that was hilarious, and that was a big success story for us. And I think we were eating those cookies for like the next 2 years too. But that was another fun project. But as I started getting a little bit older, I started getting pretty concerned with what I knew and what I thought I should know and what my peers were doing. And you know, I had dreams of going to boarding school and things like that, so from all my reading, of course. And so I would make these charts, and I still have them. I almost brought them to show you guys, but I didn't. I made these charts that had all of the subjects I thought I should be studying, and I would take them to my mom and be like, Mom, do you think if I study all of these subjects like every day for a whole month, do you think I could like rent whatever movie I wanted at the video store? You know, and for the youngest in a family of 6, that was an incredible treat, right? Like my choice at the movie store. So that was my big prize. And my mom would just be like, great, that's incredible, of course, do that. And so I did, and that kept me feeling current and feeling like I was accomplishing something throughout the day between reading and rowing. And I started studying GED study guides that I got from the library as I got a little bit older as well. And when I turned 16, actually the day after my 16th birthday, I started college full-time through the Running Start program that we have here in Washington State. And I loved it. I was so happy to be there. I loved the lectures and the projects and homework and writing papers. And of course, like, my first paper was terrible. It was awful. My sister had proofread it and just, slashed it to shreds, and the professors just hated it. It just got totally destroyed. But I learned how to write a paper from that, and so I did really well, because I was so happy to be there. And I transferred into a 4-year university and did really well there too. But I always had this feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop, always waiting for the moment somebody would be like, hey, wait a minute, like, she doesn't actually know anything. Like, what is she doing here? Thankfully, that moment never came, and I graduated with great relief and joy on my part, but it's true, there's so much that I don't know. I think I'd been married like 2 years before my husband started telling me about how the solar system works, and that our sun is a star and there are other suns in the sky, and mind-blowing stuff, right? So I'm always learning, there's always so much to learn. But I have to wonder, how is it that I arrived at a university with all of the tools I needed to succeed, not only there, but in my life following my passion since then, if I didn't have any knowledge? And, because I didn't grow up to be a rower, right? Like, well, so how did I, figure out what to do other than that? And I have to look at what I did bring with me, and I had self-confidence, motivation, determination, flexibility, and real strong desire to learn. All tools and characteristics that are centered around a really strong sense of self and knowing who you are in the world. And I had all that from spending so much time on my own and just with myself and figuring out what it is I wanted to do with my days and my life. And it seems to me that our education system is so focused primarily on what kids know these days and teaching them what we think they need to know. And I'm just so curious about what it would look like if we focused more on who kids are and who they are meant to be in their natural gifts in the world. So as Greg said, I spent the last few years working and studying with Wilderness Awareness School that has a really unique model of mentoring that really takes kids out in nature and mentors them into connecting to themselves, to the natural world, and to their communities. And what we're seeing is these kids have just an amazing talent and creativity, and they're just so full of passion for learning and for life when they have that time and space to discover their own gifts. Now, a lot of people, when they hear my story, they say, yeah, well, that wouldn't work for everybody, like maybe everybody's not as self-motivated as you are. And I think that's true, and I know that not even all my siblings would agree that our way of learning worked for them either. But if that's true, that one way of learning doesn't work for everybody, why is our society so focused on sending the vast majority of our students through this whole other path of our formal education system? It just doesn't make sense to me that that would work for everybody either. So I'm not saying that I have an answer or that I think there is one right way to learn, but I do believe that we really need creative individuals in our culture and in our world. And I think that that has something to do with mentorship and with people really finding their passions and their natural gifts and who they are meant to be as people in this world. And I really believe that kids have this ability to learn and grow on their own, and that maybe for us as supporters of that journey, that's going to look a little bit more like stepping out of the way and letting that happen, and a little less like doing and overseeing that process. Maybe just a little bit more standing back and letting that be what it's going to be. So my journey certainly wasn't always easy, and it certainly wasn't always fun. but I am happy with who I am, and I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in my life today. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you all.